Hi, welcome to my video on scale drawing. What is a scale drawing? Well, a scale drawing is just a drawing that shows a real object, but it shows the object with accurate sizes. So it's an object that would be too large to show actual size on a piece of paper. It would be shown rather on a scale drawing. So the real object size has been reduced or enlarged by a certain amount, and that certain amount is called the scale. So let's take an example, or let's look at an example of what a real scale drawing looks like. Here is an example. This is a map, and it looks like a map of the northeastern part of the United States. And we see at the bottom this 1 inch equals 125 miles. That is my scale factor. So that is showing that for every 1 inch on my map, that's equivalent to 125 actual miles. So let's look at the distance between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia. This distance appears to be about 1 inch. Okay? If we were being very precise, we would get a ruler out and we would measure the exact distance. So if we look at that exact distance and we estimate it, it's probably about 1 inch. So I'm looking at this map saying, well, if it's about 1 inch apart, Washington and Richmond on the map, that means in real miles, it's about 125 miles from Washington, D.C. to Richmond. And that is about true. It's about a little over 100 miles to drive from Washington, D.C. to Richmond. So let's look at the notes again and see if we can make sense of these. So scale drawings are used for house plans and for maps. A lot of times if you are, for example, remodeling your kitchen, the architect might come to you and show you his plan for your kitchen on a drawing. And again, that drawing is going to have some sort of scale factor to show what the actual size of the proposed kitchen is going to be. And we always show that scale as a ratio of the length measured on the drawing, okay, which could be in inches or centimeters, and then the length of the actual object, which could be measured in miles, feet, larger measurements, larger units of measurement. Let's look at the drawing here. We have a drawing, and this oval part of the drawing is a lake. We have someone's cabin on the lake, I guess a vacation home over here. We have an amusement park over, which is kind of right across from the cabin. We have a restaurant, which is a little bit closer to the cabin. We know in order to travel from the cabin to the amusement park, we have to take a ferry, and a ferry is just a boat that transports you across the lake, since there doesn't appear to be any road or bridge that's going to cover the lake. So let's look at the scale drawing for the above. We see that 1/2 inch equals 1/4 of a mile. So 1/2 inch equals 1/4 of a mile. Remember that 1/2 can be expressed as 0.5, and 1/4 can be expressed as 0.25. So what we know is we know the measurement on the map, and we need to know what the actual is. So I'm going to put down actual in my denominator. So my map is measuring distance in inches, and the actual distance is going to be expressed in miles. Now, we always are going to be given the scale factor. We have to know what the scale factor is. So let's write that down here. The scale factor is what we know. So our ratio is saying we want inches to miles. So we know that 1/2 an inch is equal to 1/4 of a mile. So let's go ahead just for ease and put these values in as decimals. So that means my inches on the numerator would be 0.5 or 1/2 an inch. And then we know that 1/2 an inch is equal to 1/4 of a mile, or 0.25. So now we have half of our proportion already written, and that was just the scale factor. So this part of the proportion is going to be, always going to be the scale factor. Now, it says, use this information and the scale to find out the width of the actual lake. So they're saying that on the map, the lake is 10 inches wide. So where are we going to put our 10? Numerator or denominator? That's right. We're going to put it up here in the numerator because that's measured in inches. So we have 10 inches. Okay? So we have inches to miles. It's always a good idea to put units in your proportion. That way it makes it easier when you're filling the proportion in. So what we're asked to find is find out the width of the actual lake. So we're looking to find out what are the actual miles associated with the 10-inch width. So we have inches on the top part of our proportion, or in the numerator. Inches go straight across. Okay, so all of these values are going to be our inches, and all of the values in the denominator will be our miles. So let's go ahead and solve this proportion using cross multiplication. So let's cross multiply. So we get 0.5x is equal to the product of 0.25 times 10. Let's simplify that. We get 0.5x. If we use our calculator, we can see that 0.25 times 10 is 2.5. We just move the decimal place 1 point to the right. We divide each side by 0.5 so that we can get x alone. That comes out to be x equals 5 miles. Because 2.5 divided by 0.5 is 5 miles. So the distance across the lake, or the diameter of the lake, is equal to 5 miles using a scale factor that has 1/2 an inch equal to 1/4 of a mile. So the distance between the cabin and the amusement park is going to be 5 miles. Thank you for watching.